Right now, a local mother who lost her child to a fentanyl overdose is pushing to make Narcan readily accessible in all Wisconsin schools.
Plus, efforts are underway to find anyone who may still be trapped inside a partially collapsed building in Iowa.
And the negotiated debt limit deal faces its first test as lawmakers weigh in on the details. It's all coming up on News 3 Now at 10. Fentanyl poisonings are quickly becoming a major concern for many parents as the deadly drug claims the lives of more children.
Teenagers willing to try Adderall or vape marijuana are instead finding themselves at risk of losing everything. Tahlil Mohideen shares one mom's tragic experience and her push to save others.
I ordered this banner, and this is one of several that have been made of all teenagers.
These young people all have one tragic thing in common.
These are kids that are just experimenting.
They lost their lives to a fentanyl overdose.
It's so tragic, and I just want to save parents from this nightmare.
For mom Michelle Coleman, one face in particular stands out.
Yeah, there's Cade.
At 18 years old, her son Cade Reddington died in a UW-Milwaukee residence hall after taking a pill he thought was Percocet, but was instead 100% fentanyl.
He passed away with other kids around him who had no idea that that he was overdosing.
Since his death in the winter of 2021, Coleman has helped bring the life-saving medication Narcan, which reverses the effects of the drug, to 11 of 13 UW campuses. But now she and other advocates want to take things a step further.
We think it's really important that this starts at a much younger age, that we get the Narcan in the schools.
They're backing a bill that would require all Wisconsin schools to make Narcan or another anti-opioid medication accessible at all times. Officials from the Wisconsin Association of School Boards say they agree the issue needs attention. And while they support the spirit of the bill, they're not yet ready to get on board.
There are a number of terms in the bill that we're talking about that aren't well defined.
They have concerns around medication tampering, staff liability, and a state mandate that comes without funding for execution.
I'd like to know more information about just what the extent of the problem is within school buildings.
If this mandate helps save one life on our school grounds, it will be worth it.
Several districts across the state do already have Narcan available, either under lock and key or with school resource officers. To make it available at all schools, some are recommending using money from the state's multi-million-dollar opioid settlement.
2 people are displaced after an apartment on Madison's south side yesterday afternoon. Firefighters were called to the 1100 block of Petra Place just before 2:40. A woman told firefighters she had been cooking with grease on her stovetop when she stepped outside for just a few minutes. When she returned, she found smoke and fire in her kitchen and called 911. A pan was removed from the stove and placed in the sink, and the fire was extinguished. The kitchen and living room were extensively damaged. No injuries were reported.
The DNR is warning of elevated fire risks as temperatures rise across much of Wisconsin. Right now, 58 of the 72 counties are under a high risk of fire. The DNR and fire departments responded actually to more than 90 wildfires across the state last week alone. Officials say greener foliage has helped crews quickly stop the fires, but this recent dry weather and low humidity have raised the fire risk. To prevent more fires from sparking, the DNR plans to suspend burn permits for areas that are under that increased fire threat. Would be great to get some rain, but we are in a bit of a dry spell. It continues. Here's Julian Seawright with your first warn forecast. Would love to get just a little rain, Julian.
Just a little bit is all we need, Eric, and hopefully over the next several days we could start to see some spotty showers, at least with this current forecast. So getting right into it, this is what we're looking at as we get into tonight. The air quality advisory that we had for the high levels of ozone, well, that's cleared up for areas surrounding Dane County, but areas to the north and to the west are still dealing with those air quality advisories until we get into around 11 p.m. for tonight. Now, ahead of that, here's how things are panning out. Well, right now it's still rather mild. It's feeling like it's in the 70s, and looking ahead, we're going to see it finally get to the 60s, but still going to be mild as you're waking up for tomorrow. Low 60s as you're heading out the door, and for tonight, that's really what we're going to see as our low for us here in southern Wisconsin. Heading into tomorrow, though, we are looking for another hot and even warm day throughout much of southern Wisconsin. However, we do have opportunities to see some showers starting to develop for some areas. Now, it's going to mainly be dry for all of us and mainly going to be on top of it rather sunny. But we do have opportunities for some of that humidity to start to spark some showers once we get to our Wednesday afternoon and heading into our Wednesday evening as well. And that's just going to be the start of it. Even though when we get to Wednesday nights, things are going to be clearing out. Thursday and Friday also give us more opportunities for some spotty showers and potentially even some thunderstorms. We'll be taking a look at that in a few moments and just how much rain we can expect in just a few moments. Until then, over to you.
A Madison man is sentenced to 20 years in prison after pleading guilty to stabbing 3 people at a bar last May. Julius Goodwin pleaded guilty in February to 3 counts of first-degree reckless injury for last year's stabbings at Club Lamarck. The 50-year-old was also ordered to spend 13 years on extended supervision after being released. The stabbing victim suffered non-life-threatening injuries in this incident.
It's been about a week now since a man was shot and killed outside Lush on Madison's east side. Now, new police scanner audio obtained by News 3 Now paints a picture of a chaotic scene, something neighboring businesses and police alike say hasn't been uncommon. Police records show officers have been called to Lush now nearly 3 dozen times in just the last 6 months. The calls have come for everything from burglary to battery and, of course, most recently a weapons offense turned homicide. It's an issue Madison Police Chief Sean Barnes says his department has been aware of for a while.
You have some responsibility to ensure that it is a safe environment for your customers. And if you can't do that, then unfortunately there are some civil remedies that we will be looking forward to.
Chief Barnes says police have served a temporary restraining order on Lush to halt operations while they investigate the business. Police are still looking for any information related to last weekend's shooting.
Meanwhile, in Florida, 2 people are now in custody for their alleged involvement in a shooting at a popular boardwalk north of Miami in Hollywood. Investigators believe the shooting happened after 2 groups were involved in an argument. Police are still looking for 3 other suspects. 9 people, including a 1-year-old, are recovering from their injuries after they were shot. 3 victims have been released from a hospital while the rest remain in stable condition.
Tomorrow marks 6 years since that deadly explosion at the Diddy milling plant in Cambria. 5 people were killed, 14 others were hurt. The U.S. Department of Labor determined the explosion was caused by dust hazards that could have been prevented had safety protocols been followed. Diddy was fined $1.8 million, but appealed in 2017. They say they didn't agree with the violation categories and expected the appeal to take about a year. As of today, OSHA still considers the case open as Diddy continues to contest the fines. We reached out to Diddy, who sent us the following statement. It reads in part, quote, "Our thoughts and prayers remain unwavering for those affected by the incident 6 years ago. We will never forget. We are committed to continuing to serve our team, community, farmers, and customers with the highest safety and quality standards." Diddy also said the appeals process is still ongoing, which is why the over $1.8 million fine has yet to be paid.
Anger and desperation are growing in Iowa after an apartment building partially collapsed in Davenport. A woman was rescued just yesterday after officials had said no known residents were left inside. 5 people remain unaccounted for, and their family and friends are calling on authorities to do another search of the building. They say not enough is being done to search for those possible survivors.
Our search teams are currently deployed on site. That building is unstable, and it continues to worsen as time progresses.
The fire chief says at least 2 extensive searches have been conducted using canines, drones, thermal imaging, and trained rescuers. The city is still evaluating any demolition plans.
Wisconsin Republicans released a package of measures that would tweak the state's abortion ban. One measure would increase the penalty for anyone besides the mother who performs or causes an abortion to 12.5 years if found guilty in prison. Another would clarify medical procedures designed to save a pregnant woman's life but could harm the unborn child. They don't qualify as abortion. C-sections or removal of a miscarriage are listed as some examples of acceptable procedures. Meanwhile, a third bill would increase the tax exemption parents can claim for each dependent from $700 to $1,000. Governor Evers is likely to veto the bills.
A group of Republicans in the House are lashing out against the debt limit deal between Republican Speaker Kevin McCarthy and President Biden. Skylar Henry has the latest from Capitol Hill.
Speaker McCarthy should pull this bad bill down We should stop taking this bill up right now.
The compromise deal that would raise the federal debt ceiling and prevent a historic default is facing vocal opposition from hardline conservatives. Leaders of the GOP House Freedom Caucus lashed out against the agreement Tuesday.
This bill canonizes post-COVID spending levels brought to us by Joe Biden and the Democrats.
It was struck over the weekend in a compromise between Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and President Biden. McCarthy defended the compromise.
These are major victories. I understand people get upset about walking through a debt ceiling, but this is a House, a Senate, and a presidency.
The House Rules Committee discussed the legislation ahead of an expected vote on whether to send it to the full House for consideration.
It puts the brakes on the past 2 years of Washington's reckless runaway spending.
The bill represents a necessary compromise.
The legislation would impose federal spending reductions for the next 2 years and suspend the debt limit past the next presidential election.
It's an agreement that not only prevents the first ever default in this country, but it will protect our hard-earned and historic economic recovery.
Among its provisions, the deal cuts funding to the IRS, tightens restrictions for food stamps, and speeds up a controversial pipeline project running from West Virginia into Virginia. Skyler Henry, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
The package would hold spending essentially flat for the coming year while allowing increases for military and veterans accounts.
Meanwhile, another Republican could enter the race for president. Allies of Chris Christie are rallying him to run. They have formed a super PAC to support the former New Jersey governor's expected Republican presidential bid. The New Jersey Republican sees himself as the only serious GOP candidate willing to take on former President Trump. Christie also believes he could appeal to enough independents to beat President Biden in the general election. Still more ahead on News 3 Now at 10, including Julian with your complete forecast.
But first, a former CEO convicted of defrauding investors of millions of dollars is taken to prison to begin her sentence. We're back after this.
You're watching News 3 Now at 10. Winner of the Best Evening Newscast by the Wisconsin Broadcasters Association. You're watching News 3 Now at 10.
Former fast-rising CEO Elizabeth Holmes has reported to a federal prison camp in Texas to begin an 11-year sentence. The disgraced Theranos head showed up to the minimum security prison camp this morning to begin her sentence, some 1,800 miles from her home in California, where her partner and 2 children live. Holmes appeared to be smiling as she walked toward the facility where she will serve her time.
While it might look at times like a country club, the reality is you are confined, you're locked up.
Well, last year, a jury found the former Silicon Valley superstar guilty of defrauding investors out of hundreds of millions of dollars by promising to overhaul the blood testing industry with just a finger prick. Holmes and her former business partner are also ordered to pay more than $450 million back to investors.
Former First Lady Rosalind Carter has dementia. That is according to the Carter Center. The 95-year-old is married to former President Jimmy Carter, who is 98 and began hospice care in February. The center says the couple is living happily together in Plains, Georgia. It says it's sharing the news to increase awareness about dementia. That might be fitting since Rosalind was a prominent advocate for mental health during her time at the White House. An agency created by Congress is launching an investigation into the recent horse deaths at Kentucky's Churchill Downs, the home of the Kentucky Derby. 12 horses have died at the famed racetrack over the past month, including 2 just last week. The Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Authority, HISA, holding an emergency veterinary summit today to thoroughly review the horse deaths. Investigators will examine the veterinary procedures used at the track and the histories of the deceased horses.
If there is genuinely a pattern, if there is something that brings all of these cases together, or at least the majority of them, that we can impact, that they'll be able to see that and figure that out.
HISA will also determine whether anti-doping control program procedures were followed. Racing is scheduled to resume at Churchill Downs on Thursday.
Meanwhile, in Sauk County, a 10-year-old doe at a deer farm has tested positive for chronic wasting disease. DATCAP says the farm where the doe was located is now under quarantine. Officials will now conduct an investigation into this case. The release did not name the farm in question, nor did it say when the positive test was confirmed. CWD is a deadly disease that affects deer, elk, and moose.
If you're looking to get out to one of Wisconsin's state parks, there's no better time than this coming weekend. June 3rd and 4th marks the 11th annual Free Fun Weekend. State park admission fees, fishing licenses, and trail passes will be waived during those days. All state parks and trails will be open from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. All-terrain vehicles, ATVs, will not need to be registered, and a trail pass won't be required for those trails. All DNR boat launches will also be open. And with how temperatures are looking over the next few days, many of us could be looking for a place to cool down. Julian's back with your complete forecast.
Well, we're going to need that if we get any more of these 90-degree temperatures.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a hot one to start off this Memorial Day weekend, everything. But we are going to start to see some changes. Just how much of those changes are really going to be impacting us? Well, the heat in itself is going to be sticking around. Taking a look at what we have for our weather headlines. It's going to be warm and even hot throughout the rest of this week, but we do have some opportunities for the next several days to have some rain and even some thunderstorms for us here in southern Wisconsin. Now, as we get into the weekend, however, it's still going to be humid, especially starting off for Saturday, and it's also going to be rather hot. So we don't have a whole lot of opportunities for us to see rain, but we'll take whatever we can get. So let's talk about the rain in itself. As of right now, we'll have the air quality advisories that were impacting us throughout much of our afternoon. Those will be in effect for areas just west and far north of the Dells until about 11 p.m. for tonight. Now, in terms of the rain, let's start off with our future track. So today was a warm to hot one for many of us here in southern Wisconsin. Going into tomorrow, well, it's going to start off rather mild and then get warm very quickly. Around lunchtime already into the middle 80s, upper 80s for areas just to the west. Still going to be a bit cooler the closer you are to Lake Michigan, but those southerly winds will be kicking temperatures near 90 degrees by the time we get into our Wednesday afternoon. Now, shower activity is going to be spotty at best, but spotty is better than none at all, especially since it's been so dry. I know it's been a headache for farmers around southern Wisconsin and Wisconsin in itself. So around 4 o'clock, we're looking for a couple of clusters, especially just near Janesville, south of Watertown, starting to make its way to eastern side of Dane County and near Jefferson County around 5 o'clock. But again, it's not going to be very widespread. And as we head into our Wednesday nights, as the sun settles, we're not going to be looking at much in terms of rainfall heading into Wednesday night, transitioning into Thursday morning, which is going to be almost a rinse and repeat for us here in southern Wisconsin. Temperatures into the upper 60s, still going to be sunny and rather dry for many of us. However, we are expecting humidity to be up for the next couple of days. That could start to spark some showers, especially once we get into our early Thursday afternoon, which could be impacting more areas in Dane County. But once we get into around 5 o'clock, still going to be to the west, to the north, trying to make its way towards Rockett County, but then phases out once again as we get into our Thursday night. So we're not looking for too much widespread rainfall, and in itself could be only seeing for some areas not even a lot of rainfall at all. 1/10 to 1/4 of an inch for areas near Mineral Points. The further south that we are, especially for Janesville, it might see close to about an inch, but overall we're not looking for too much in terms of rain, but we'll take what we can get after such a dry period. So planning out tomorrow, our high will be into the upper 80s. We're looking for our morning to be on the milder side, and it's definitely going to be warm by the time we get into our afternoon. More 90s are in the forecast over the next 10 days for us. We are far above normal for this time of year, which is typically around 73, 74 degrees. And we're not going to be seeing 70s in this 10-day forecast from the first warm weather team at all. Instead, 90s are going to be in the trifecta heading into the weekend. We'll start to cool down just a bit for next week as we'll see temperatures into the lower 80s, but more sunshine and not a whole lot of rain in this forecast.
And coming up in sports, Oregon moved into second all-time on the state's longest unbeaten streak. How the Panthers got it done with ease, that's next on News 3 Now. In 3 days, the Wisconsin volleyball team will embark on their 2-week foreign tour in Europe, where they'll play 7 matches against high-level competition. And all 15 Badgers will be making the trip. So not only will they get extra practices together, but Kelly Sheffield's squad will get in-game competition that will help them get ready for the upcoming season. That's a win-win. And yeah, they're going over there to win games too.
It's just being together and just growing, experiencing new things. Getting out of your comfort zone is a really big part of this, creating memories, playing against hopefully high-level competition along the way, and getting a month of training.
We've definitely set that standard, like, hey, this isn't just a vacation. This is where we're going to get better. We're going to play against really good teams with really good players, and this is another opportunity for us to get better.
But the excursion isn't just a business trip. The Badgers do plan on sprinkling in some fun during their stops in Turkey, Slovenia, Italy, and Switzerland to experience the different cultures, try new foods, and see the sights. And with the stop number 1 on the tour, a homecoming for Gigi, well, this group can't wait to experience it all together with their teammate as a tour guide.
Learning about the different cultures and the different countries that we're going to visit. So that's been super exciting as well, especially since we're going to Turkey first. And Gigi is from Turkey, and she was kind of telling us all about it.
We try to max out. We'll compete like crazy, but we're going to go see the highlights and you know, hopefully eat good food and drink and be able to see some of the great places around there, and then go and play high-level competition at night.
Let's kick it. Oregon hosting Clinton in a Division II regional semifinal. Panthers pounced early. Tegan Schenecker takes it all the way in the box and then taps it home to make it 1-0 Oregon, not even 30 seconds into the game. And then 20 seconds later, it's Ashley Wolf ripping one into the back of the net. The Panthers move their unbeaten streak to 44 games and advance to the regional finals with the win. Brewers up north in Canada opening up a 3-game series with the Blue Jays. How about this start? Top of the first, and William Contreras puts 2 on the board with that 2-run jack. Unfortunately, that was the best part of the game for the Crew, because after that, it was all Jays. Bottom of the frame, Adrian Hauser would give up the lead and then some. Brewers fall 7-2 the final. We're back after this.
2-run double for Whit Merrifield. 4-run first for Toronto.
Finally tonight, residents of a Las Vegas area neighborhood will be living on streets with interesting names because all of the streets are named after Pokemon characters.
Oh my
Some examples include Snorlax Lane, Pikachu Avenue, and you saw Jigglypuff Place. The idea came from exactly where you might think, one of the construction manager's kids.
No.
Now, the good news is they won't have to worry about running out of names. There are more than 1,000 Pokemon characters. Meanwhile, the same developer is working on another community that will have streets named after characters on the TV show Yellowstone.
Oh, can you imagine? Oh, yeah, I live in the Pokemon neighborhood.
You got to write Jigglypuff Lane down every time you send some mail.
It's actually kind of a cool street name.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. A lot of fun.
Final check with Julian in the forecast.
Well, things are very similar to what they were last week, except for it's just going to be hotter longer. We're looking at 90s to stick around for us through Wednesday, Thursday, and even potentially going into our Friday. For some areas, Madison, we're looking to flirt with that 90-degree temperatures for between Wednesday and Thursday. So make sure you're staying hydrated. So it's not just going to be hot, but also rather humid, which could pop up a couple of showers, maybe even some thunderstorms throughout the next 3 days. Heading into this weekend, we're staying with the theme of, that's right, warm, hot, and humid. Until we get to next week, we start to cool down just a bit. But even the next 6 to 10 days, we're expecting temperatures to be well above average. Lower 80s into Tuesday is a weak little cold front. Just knocks things down a bit, but it's still going to feel like August and summer in itself over the next several days.
It'll be great to get just a little bit of rain at some point. Julian, thanks. Thanks for joining us for News 3 Now at 10.
Do something good, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.